All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm here with Eric. And Eric, I forgot, like, I have followed you and known you so long, and I don't know how to properly pronounce your last name. So let me take you off mute. Oh, my bad on that one. There we go. So is it Falstrault?
Yeah, it's Falstrault.
Falstrault. Okay. So, all right. So I was really close. So I'm happy about that.
That's good.
So for everybody out there, I threw down there your Instagram handle.
Yeah.
So those people that see her on my definitely check Eric out. I definitely wanted to get you on this. You were like one of the first people I thought of when I was doing this because I really wanted to talk about strength coaching, really related to grappling and jujitsu and those type of things. You probably don't remember this, but it might have been now 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I had gotten into a crazy business situation where I wanted to buying in and owning a gym that just tailored itself to fighters and grapplers.
Okay.
And the guy who was training all those guys just kind of out of nowhere was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. And I had a lot of experience training American football players.
Okay.
And I had come from a Poliquin background for strength and conditioning and biosignature. So, but I never had to worry about weight and weight cuts. Because with football players, it was bigger, faster, badder, bigger, faster, badder, bigger, faster, badder. Just don't break the joints. So I had reached out to you and a couple other people I knew that were like Poliquin based, and there was a guy, Mark and Derek, who all sent me stuff like, hey, here's a couple things to look at.
Okay.
And I believe I'd gotten your book. And I remember I went to go grab it for this. And I think there was a whole carton of books when I closed my gym in New Jersey a couple years ago. And then I left in a storage facility, and I think it's there. So you're gonna get me for two because I'm gonna rebuy it.
Okay, good.
But I just wanted to say that to you because that's why I was excited to get you. You probably don't even remember it, but I reached out to you on social media, like, here's a couple things or people to follow. And then I just started studying that for weight cuts. And I loved it. I had a great career running that gym. And then it got me myself at 46 to get into jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I did my first tournament about a month and a half ago. That's why I was excited to get you on, like, for a lot of things. So let's rewind a little bit. And let me give you the space to introduce yourself. Let everybody know where you are. I was in New Jersey and in Florida. So let everybody know where you're from and a little bit on your background, please.
I've been in this field for the last, I think, 30 years or something like that. And I've been lucky to have fallen into Charles Poliquin training methodology like early on. Like I think I was 16, but I started training around like 12 like in my home, like a gym, like a Rocky style, like in the winter, no heating and all that. So I was doing simple benches, squats. My uncle was a judoka, and he made my own my program. So we started training, but was very simple, like bench, squats, deadlift, pull ups. That's it. But I was more into bodybuilding. So I knew like all the Muscle Mag magazine, all the superstars, training wise and all that. And then when I was around 15, I fell into muscle media with Poliquin. So I learned quickly like tempo, stuff like that. Like he started talking about structural balance and all that. So I was already into that type of training. Then I met him the first time in Montreal when I was probably, I think it was 18 or 19. Okay. And he wanted to test someone on the bench press. And then one of my friend like pushed me, but I was like, I think the smallest guy in the room. Like there was like all the Montreal legends like Larry Vinette and all those big bodybuilders in Montreal. They were all there. And I had to be the one being tested on the bench. I was like probably 180 pounds, like wet. so, uh, so he tested me on the bench, but I was up to, let's say, my one rep max at that weight. I was at 365 for like one rep. Then, but I didn't look the part. Like I was like a small, like nerdy guy in the back, and then
How tall are you? How tall are you?
I have 5'7".
So 5'7" at 188, and you're almost doubling your body weight.
Yeah. So, but I was training his way, like tempo training, since I was like 16. So it was at least 3 years that I was training with his method.
And can you tell me 1 second? But can you, for some of the younger coaches out there, this is another big reason I wanted a guy like you on here is, can you explain what tempo training is? Because I'm always telling young coaches, like all these internet influencers and all this, like you never see tempo discussed that much anymore. So, so I'm so glad you brought that up. Could you explain what that is?
It's the time of work, which is 1 rep. Then it gives you the time of work that you have for a given set. Okay. So let's say you want to do 1 rep at a 5-second tempo, which is usually you go down in 3, go up in 2 seconds. So 5 seconds per rep. Depending on the goal of the training, if let's say you want to work on strength, we know that it's below 20 seconds, between 5, let's say, seconds and then 20 seconds. And then there's functional hypertrophy or hypertrophy, which goes beyond, let's say, 45, 60 seconds and up. So it tells you how your time of work should be. Let's say you want to go into strength, you want to do 20 seconds, then let's say 4 reps at 5 seconds each. So that's why the time of work or time of contraction for 1 rep is really important. So it could be very fast. It could be very slow as well, but let's say it could take you 20 seconds to do a rep. You go down the eccentric part of the exercise in 10 seconds, and then you go up in 10 seconds. So it's still only 1 rep, but the time of work is as much as 20 seconds. So that's why it's not only a question of reps, it's always a matter of the time of contraction and the goal, the intent and the goal in mind as well.
I love hearing you say that, because that's something I try to preach to people. Even when I was working with fighters, was always this. I saw it in American football because I got coaching them earlier, where it was like, hey, well, my coach did this, and his coach did this, and his coach did this, and I'm like, I know, but you can't do every exercise super fast. Reps, like there's different muscle fiber types, and depending on what do we want out of this phase of the training, and what so like that's why you really need a good strength coach, especially. And I think, like, a sport that I'm realizing about jiu-jitsu that I realized with the MMA fighters was you don't have a season. Like with football, American football or soccer or baseball, you have like half the year that you can work on them, retool their shoulder. Let's put 20 pounds on, right? But now with MMA, it's like, coach, 8 weeks later, I want to fight again, or there's another tournament in 30 days. It's so important to know every minute or every real second of every minute of every rep of every program becomes important, and it's for longevity. It's for the health of you over the long frame. But so continue. So you start off learning tempo, which now we understand has to do with the timing and the workload, the time under tension and time of work. Where you're at, what, 19 years old now? You said, and you met Charles, did you say through Muscle Media, or was it
No, it was I learned about Charles in Muscle Media, but then he did a conference here in Montreal. So
which was a magazine for you guys that don't understand Muscle Media, muscular development. I was just talking to somebody about John Romanoff. Romanoff. Yeah, go ahead, please. These kids don't know.
Yeah, that was like the old school. I still have them at home, but like you don't find like that type of information and quality of articles anymore. Now. So it's sad, but it was a good memory for that. But that's when I learned about his ways. But he came in Montreal like very often to give conference. So I said, okay, why not try it out, and I'll go see. And I was fresh into that, so that was probably one of the, if not the first seminar I took, it was like one of the first ones. So he tested me on the bench, and then I got like the structural balance. When we know that, let's say you find out your 1 rep max. At that time, he was trying out the let's say if you're able to do your 1 rep max, which is 100% of your maximum intensity or your max weight. You should be able to do between 120 to 140% of that, just doing the eccentric part for 10 seconds. So he tested it out on me. So then we went up to 405 or something like that, but I had to resist in 10 seconds. I've never done that. Okay. So he okay. So then we started doing this, but he was spotting me. So I really had to do it. And it's the first time I met him. So if you knew Charles at that time, he was very arrogant. People like were scared to come at his conference because he always picked on a few of the guys in the conference. So I was like, okay, it's do or die now. So I did it all. And but I managed to do it. And then he said, okay, you're a well-trained guy. So I said, man, I've been following what you're saying in muscle media for a year. So he said, okay. So it's at that time, like we always kept in touch with each other. And then I opened up a gym with him in Montreal, which was called the Poliquin Performance Center. So we had it for a few years. Then after that, he went into Arizona, like all like the other things, up to Rhode Island.
Rhode Island is when he was in Rhode Island when I had learned about Poliquin, and then I did my first biosig. I learned about him.
Yeah.
It's funny when you say people don't understand because there wasn't really the internet or social media. So for this legend to go around to be afraid of, and I learned about Charles through Paul Chek and Paul Chek conferences because there's guys who are like, hey, listen, you want to do strength coaching? The best guy is Charles Poliquin, but don't tell me you're Chek certified. Don't front row. Don't make sure your Harpenter bull calendars are you're the right like. And I'm like, and I remember,
listen, yeah.
And it got back to me. I'm in New Jersey, and I would say probably was like 20. I want to say somewhere between 14 and 15. We did our first biosig is when I first met him. And somebody had come back to me, and I was known as like a Jersey attitude Northeast. I would curse and talk in my lectures. I'd be like, that's a stupid question. Like, you're gonna have to get that answer. Like, so as I'm coming up, one of my partners did his seminar, came back wide-eyed and was like, you're the guy we heard of? You have to do his seminar. You're gonna love him. And that was it. I went the first seminar. I immediately paid an exorbitant amount of money to do a private with him. And I think, and I stayed in touch with him. I adored him because I didn't ask him to think about strength training. My thing was like, how do you have all these connections? How do you maneuver in business? How do you not get screwed over? I was going through a really difficult business contract with some Gold's gyms. And Charles was just, we never talked about anything with working out. It was all about business and keeping true to your, like, and that's what I always saw, like a different part of him. Yeah. And I was like, man, this guy's mind, like, I just took your seminar. You blew us out of the water with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I talked about you in business, and it's rare. You knew your, your stuff. And, he's also like, I've been through bad times and I didn't learn this. And so I was always such a big fan. We did biosig and we did a whole program around the biosig and all that. But when you're talking about it, so I'm interesting. So he's got that status around 2014, 15. When is it when you're getting tested by him in the bench? What year is that?
Oh boy.
Because Rhode Island is when I meet him. So that sounds like you're way like.
Oh, way before that. Like he was just starting to give conference in Montreal, which is the first time he gave conference. So he started to do this because he was like traveling a lot because of the Olympics and some of his athletes. But he was starting to give conference out of Montreal first, and then after that it went on because he was from Ottawa, like which
he was Canadian. Yeah, I remember we were talking about this at one time that what was it? There was a bunch of people, and I was like, I was like, we were talking about this. And I was like, no, I was like, you got to go to Australia, Canada. I was like, the old school strength coaches were in the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah.
I was like, but now they're actually oddly in like Australia, Canada. A lot of strength work was done. A lot of people were surprised because when I got into the strength coaching for the fighters, I pulled up some old stuff because I knew George St. Pierre was Canadian and ending up at the training with the Olympic team and doing a lot of that sprint work and the gymnastic work. That all came from Charles and the structural stability. And I remember You talk about the 10-second bench. My fighters have come to hate Charles. They don't know who he is, but they hate the name Poliquin because we do a 12-second negative pull-up.
Okay. Wow.
And I call it the Poliquin pull-up. And it's day one. I test you in it.
Yeah,
Same thing. I test it. I do a single leg squat just for my fighters. It's real simple. Let me just see if and then it's part of their routine. It's like their thing. And then you could just see when the new fighter comes in the gym, they're like, fucking Poliquin pull up.
They know. Yeah. They know what's coming. Yeah.
And I feel that's my ode to him, even though they don't know who he was as a strength coach. His name is still muttered with that fear.
But that's the thing is like he got results because it was hard.
Yeah.
No, I don't know anyone that trained with him that weren't a bit scared of their workout.
Yeah.
Because you know exactly that, okay, you know what, you have to work hard. And again, he never trained, and like he rarely trained people personally. I know a few of them, and those are the ones that like might be mentally unstable to be able to endure that type of like beating. But the workout, sometimes he came over here at the gym that I have now, and he did like leg workouts. We did arms, and he always had like something to like make sure that you remember what you've been doing for a few days. And no, it's like it was an experience, let's say, to go also with the boot camps that he's done throughout the years as well, like in Sweden, like everywhere around the world. Like most people remember those seminars, which is a shame that people can't try to go into live seminars now, because they I don't know why they're scared or whatever, but it's I think COVID did a big shot on this, because there's no live conference that I know a few ones. Like there's Keto Strand that does a really good job. I think it's the best way to go if you want to go to live conference like that. But there's not much now, and it's a shame, because I think most trainers should go at least once or twice a year for them, like to train themselves. Like trainers, we see them often on Instagram reels, but it's very deceiving what when you saw them. And when I saw them like in classes and courses, I was like, okay, that's just like a show.
Tell me this, because I think you come from the era of coaching where you've seen the old and the new. And I've been saying this to some younger coaches, and really to a lot of clients or even family members that ask me, hey, is this influencer? Is this good? I'm like, listen, we've weirdly gotten this era where there's people that are really, really book smart and are posting all this influencer stuff. And here's the study, and here's PubMed, and here's this. But and this is what I liked about Charles and even some of the people that are the coaches of that era and the boot camps, was you learned the theory and then you immediately applied it.
Yep.
Right. It was what was good about what I thought was American structural laboratory sciences, where you learn, I don't know where that came from. I forgot there's new, like, right. There's these new hand gestures. Okay. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was watching ESPN. Yeah. I was watching ESPN. One of them is this, or maybe I did. So anyway, so one of the things I say that's good about the edge is like you learn, like, okay, here's the biological system, then we'll dissect the frog, or here's the chemical reaction, now we'll put them together.
You apply right away.
And when we used to learn from guys like Charles, what blew my mind about guys like Charles, and I would say Paul Chek, the other guy that led me to those guys was Michael Boyle from, and he did a lot with lacrosse. And learn by doing, right? Those seminars started becoming, then you kind of like, everybody fell through a basic cert, and then you would stumble upon somebody like a Charles or somebody at this really different level of doing things. I said it to my former partner who I have on the podcast. I said, the thing I missed the most about having my consulting company was we would always have every 90 days this trip to go get certified.
Yep.
And we would always have like, hey, whoever was the best-selling trainer, you get an extra, we'll give you money back, but we choose cert. So it's got to be one of these. And BioSig was one of them that we loved going to, because we'd all get a hotel room. Those days we would be practicing exactly what we're learning.
Yeah.
You'd be taking some of the, or if you did the polyp, you'd be doing the structural and you'd be testing, you'd be working out the hypertrophy boot camp. I never did that one. That was crazy. I think that's one of the ones you said where people just died from, they couldn't open their arms. It
was an experience.
I think COVID And then I think, to be honest with you, certification companies, and I've said this, I've just been speaking to about different projects about gyms, about getting back in the gym business. I said to potential partners, I said, everybody makes a mistake. It's like, you don't make all your money in the gym. Like, you got to find ways to like bring people from outside.
Yeah.
And I think everyone got lazy where it's like, hey, you know what? We can kind of redo these certifications and just make it an online course. So let's drop it $200. You don't have to travel.
Yeah.
It made people lazy. But remember, it was like, hey, I want to, BioSig was $1,500 US. Then you're spending $500 to $600, $700 between. Yep. So you're spending $2,500, $3,000 on a certification. If you want to do that, you want to do 3 of those a year. So, I do believe it was worth it. I also believe, I think there's some reasons, heavy COVID. 2, I think also that,
but you know what? Every time you spend, like, it's not spending, it's investing. So that's the difference between us, that we travel, let's say, to get those certifications because we knew it was going to come back.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many thousands with Charles, like, to get his feedback. Sometimes I would call him, and like, how expensive it was when you wanted to have a consult with him. And like, every time I invested, it was with him. Could be a few coaches that I know in Montreal as well. Like, I invested with them as well to like go into something very specific I wanted to learn from them. It always came back, and even more after, because I learned something new. And also, you need to ask the right questions, like, right away. So if you wanted to call someone like that, you needed to at least get prepared, not just call for the fun of it. It's just like
you knew you were at a hard question if you needed to go right. The other thing too, to your point too, was I agree, it was an investment. I was tiptoeing around what I wanted to say because it was kind of I didn't know how to nicely say and insult the gym industry as a whole, but I'll say it in a second. But the other thing I thought about the investment was what I started with when I talked to you was, when you went to these seminars, you suddenly had a connection of some of the world's top coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
That you have. And I would tell clients that, like, listen, if I don't know the answer, I can call one of the top guys, like Mark Otterborough, that is out in Australia. He's an old Poliquin guy. He does this Wolfpack business thing. But Mark had a bunch of weight cuts for boxers. And I was like, hey, and he was like, you know what? Look at Poliquin. He said something to me about Poliquin's biosignature and look at insulin and cortisol. So I just started studying that. And I just looked at biosig, and I'm just like really lean, like focused in on the manipulating cortisol and insulin. And I get these great weight cuts, and I don't have to do the high. But that's how it all started. Was I have now, with the money I invested, not only what I learned from you, Charles, or the speaker, but now I made all these other friends that we can call up. Yeah. And that's the same thing. It's like, I would call you before I'd call Charles. So if I got to Charles and I spent that money, it's like a good, hard question, which he would then respect.
Yeah. That was amazing. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, maybe that's something you need to do, my friend. You need to reinvigorate the hypertrophy camp. I know.
We tried, like, we did it for Strength Sensei, because I took care of it when he passed. I took care of the Strength Sensei with Ryan Fenley, for Crystal as well, and his daughter. And then we did a few, went good, but again, like, that was like after COVID, and like, we saw it, like the even for Swiss Symposium. I was talking to Ken Kinakin, and he said the same thing.
Great coach.
Exactly. So you, like, if you don't follow him or go into his library, man, there's so much good stuff on his library that you can, like, it's very cheap to just get on it, and it's really worth it. He said the same thing. Like, he organized every 2 years, I think, the Swiss Symposium, and he said the same thing. It's not the same. Like, people don't want, like, I know life is more expensive now, the inflation and all that. Like, I really understand, and it wasn't the same when I started, that's for sure. But there's a minimum to do. Okay, so you got to pinpoint, let's say, your niche, and I would highly suggest at least once a year. If you don't go you'll go for your clientele, you go for yourself. Like, it's just fun as well to get the networking. That's when, just like a few years before Charles passed, that was one of his main goals, is to connect people together. So if you wanted to learn something about whatever fighters, or you wanted to go into more something like nutrition and all that, he put you right away in connection with someone near you, or the best he could. Like I remember the last seminar he did at his gym. I was there with a few guys, and at the end, like totally unexpected, he said, I was the first one. He said, "Eric, get up." So I was like, "Oh, bon, okay, here we go. What's gonna happen?" And then he said, "Okay, if anyone, because there was all the trainers and a few clients that was there, said if you want to go learn about like strength training for fighters and all that, you go see him." Then said thank you, and then he did this for like at least a good 10, 15 people. Okay, so he wanted to make sure like good connections and people like knew where to go besides him. And he was like, I don't know if he knew my that it was like going towards the end, or I don't know, but it was very strange that he did that in his last conference. But that was the person who he was. Like most people knew him like with the arrogance and like very mad coach, and but I would say the last 5 years before he passed, like he really changed, and he was really connecting with everyone. You called him, send him an email, like he was always there. He really changed during like the last phase. But man, like it's really sad that he's not here now, because I think we would need like someone like him, his franchise, like everything, like
His
the way he
brand,
spoke,
his brand.
yeah, the way he connected people, the way he was doing research as well. Like no one, if he wanted to know something, man, he would connect right away to someone, and then after that, let them know that he was probably the best to go. And like, man, we wouldn't still need someone like him to connect people together, make conferences like big again. I think that's what we need now. But again, with the context now, with the financials that the finance that we have now, it's a bit harder. I get it, but at least get the minimum in. That would
Yeah.
be like my best suggestion for coaches.
I had actually another reason I was excited to get you on was I was somebody who, in a weird way, I liked Charles. I knew him at the end. I knew him only from a business format. That's the only reason I would kept like, he did the same thing. He was like, screw the gym chain. He taught me, he was the first one who said to me, never stay anywhere you're not valuable. Go. Don't ever don't go. And I was in this big contract dispute with a large gym chain. And I winded up taking that advice, winded up doing well with that dispute. I had to sign a non-disclosure, so I'm not allowed to say what happened.
Mm.
But that gym chain no longer exists in Central Florida. Like,
Okay.
I mean, so it had to do with copyright, intellectual property. We had developed an entire platform of sales, and we were destroying it. And a lot of the sales we did was going out and learning this highly in-depth intellectual stuff that Charles was teaching with biosignature, and then creating sales scripts around it to combat objection management of, well, I don't have enough money, or I don't know, I'm taking Advocare, or I'm taking some other shitty supplement.
Okay.
And so there's always this, like, I don't know if you were there, but so when I learned and lectured, it was, you mentioned Ryan Finelli was one of the, right? And he actually did he had worked, my partner, Brian, Brian had hired him directly to do a bunch of coaching for some diets and stuff. And Brian learned, always even still goes back to Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a beast too. That was a big deal. It was him, Derek Woodsky. You remember Derek Woodsky? Derek, yeah. Dude, so I followed Derek on his other Instagram. He's like a sheriff now. Like,
I know.
So, but they were like monsters. And then it was Charles that they were huge. So those were the two of the teachers. And there was a guy named Larry, and we called him Lunchtime Larry. And I always forget his last name, but he would actually teach us this, like, okay, here's how, when you get another supplement company to come in, here's how you can tell it's a bad quality. Okay. And I was like, oh, that's sales. That's business sales. Now I can. So I took our personal trainers and I said, okay, I'd mount them with this information, and then I'd send them into like a GNC. And you're like, okay, I want you you got to come out with 5 leads for personal training appointments. And the way you're going to get them is go and talk about supplements and why they're buying the wrong one. And why don't they come in and get a test? And you have this special test, which was BioSig, that we could tell which ones you really need and blah, 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 blah. And we had great success with the gym. Anyway, we developed these manuals. That's why I said to Charles, and Charles was like, don't stay anywhere you're not valuable. We had our issue with them. They don't exist. We kept going. So that's all I'll say about it. But it was, I remember I reached out to him too, like you said, at the end, when it was the, when he left Poliquin Group, I had like caused a big shitstorm because I was like, speaking to what you said about his spirit and his brand, I was like, I built this whole platform. I have like a 3-year contract with a gym. We sell this. And it's not about your group of people you put together. It's that guy. He's a badass. I can get trainers behind that attitude. I can go to these seminars. He's not, because what we did is we had 2 tracks. You could either be in the holistic track, which we loved all Paul Chek stuff, but it was a much softer attitude and it was a much softer sales process. And it's just the way it was. And then we had Charles opened up a whole door to me of being like, oh, we can put someone in a corner because now we have logic, reasoning, and results. Like you said,
the system. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he had a system. He said he could quote the evidence based, but then he also had 16 clients over 8 weeks and 4 other coaches you could call that were trying that. Right. It was just a beautiful web of people. I agree with you. I had reached out to, when I saw Crystal's post that she was closing strength center, I had reached out and was like, and I saw that, this is how crazy I am, because I like the business side of things. I think I'm a good coach. I think I'm a good strength coach. I do good dieting, but I'm good at the behind the scenes business stuff. So oddly, within the same 24 hours, it shows up that Poliquin Group has a lien against them.
Ah, my God.
Yeah.
I can't say much, but
I actually spoke to 1 or 2, and I'll keep their names off the record, but people that were involved or not involved, because I go back to that early 2010 crew. Like that's kind of when I got involved in Poliquin. I met people. So probably, long after, far after you got, but I'm in the tail end of it, right? Right before he left. What did I want to say about this? So my thing was, I called up my friend who was an investor, and then another friend was a lawyer, and I'm like, well, all of Poliquin stuff that the Poliquin Group owns and all that intellectual property, let's buy the note out from the lawyer. No lawyer wants to prosecute that note. He's never going to get it. It's not worth their time. The lien. Poliquin Group shut their doors. They sold out the supplements to some other Swedish company or something like that. But I was like, I don't care about the supplements. I want all his books and all his courses and biosignature. And then I was like, and if Crystal's closing Strength Sensei, maybe she would keep it open if I can get an investment group to buy back all his old stuff. And the whole idea was to, like, because that guy, to me, I've always said, I think Charles would probably laugh at me, but it's like, I think Charles is more important to the strength and conditioning and health and fitness than someone like an Arnold Schwarzenegger is. And everybody,
100%, because like
everything. And the fact that Charles is not more popular than him with people, they still want to tell me about Arnold Schwarzenegger's shoulder workout. And now it's like, dude, have you ever heard of Charles? Right? Like, it's like, imagine if we could put all of his old stuff together, we could do those seminars again under that, especially now in the United States, we've started to turn this corner that we want strength and masculinity. We want to be in shape. We understand jujitsu is an intellectual pursuit. I see, look at me, I'm getting all hyped up. I would love to put it all back together and have like another BioSig conference.
I don't know. Like, we're still probably looking into, how can I say this? Like, looking into trying to see if we're keeping a library or something like that. I don't know, because I didn't want to get involved. All I know is that I want to take care of Crystal for as long as I can. And I train her, I do her programs. Like, we always like message each other. For me, that's the most important, because she's in school. We wanted to make sure that she's 100% with that. And we never know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if there's something, but yes, you have the idea of like bringing it all together, but it's to keep at least the new trainers, they know who is Charles Poliquin, but the methodology is really different of what's being shared now. Like, I saw a lot of bullshit, but listen, like, I'm not gonna spend my time of commenting, and but again, it's like it's always like that. It's like the messenger is always like having their opinion on something. So that's what's happening now on social media. But whatever.
Well, here's what I had said about the business end of it. The reason and okay, so I think I figured out who the mystery person was. So I had contacted Crystal very respectfully, saying in a more formal way what I said to you, like, hey, I'd love to keep it going.
Yeah.
There, and she had said to me, she goes, "There's only one person I would really trust with his legacy, and he's decided, and I respect he's doing something different." So I'm assuming it might be you because yes, I figured it out. Now, so if it happens,
no,
he's like,
yeah, no, but no, I spoke too much. No, but like, listen, it's like it took a lot of work because I tried to do my best, but again, I have my own gym over here, and then it all happened like at the same time, and then I got also the expansion for my gym as well, which is like 100% jujitsu. So I needed to focus on this because I couldn't miss that opportunity for that. But keeping or being involved with everything for Strength Sensei as well, like Ryan, the same thing. We had all our businesses aside, so we had to make a choice, and as well as Crystal, because like their school, there was a lot going on. So that was, I think, instead of losing the quality or making it like sound shitty, or like it's not worth it to keep that type of information alive. But where I don't think the door is closed for keeping something or doing something with all the information yet. Again, I don't know, but I don't know if Crystal's
I'm gonna have to call back the lawyer in New York to see about the lien. See if that's still, but no, here's what I said. I'll be honest with you. Here's my pitch on it. This is just what I thought. When I had my consulting company, we had about 5 or 6 different gyms. There's a what I don't want to be rude, but it's not considered the most respectable personal training certification. It's called AAAI ISMA. Okay. It's $100 American dollars. You literally sit through like a couple hours online, and then you take a very simple test and you pass, and then you can be certified as a trainer. Right? However, what I wound up doing was saying, hey, I have a consulting business and I'm teaching trainers how to sell. I don't have the ability to get them certified to cover them under insurance, but I teach all the biology. I teach this much more complicated course. Why don't you just set up a rotating certification in the gym? So I was upping every time I was hiring all my trainers, I'd put them through this like business on how to sell and do all this kind of stuff. But I could actually get them covered under insurance because this was a nationally accredited certification. Right. So it's kind of the game. And I'm sure Canada is somewhat similar, but it's kind of the game here.
You want to be credited. You want to have like some type of, I don't know, grading system that you can transfer with, or what that is recognized, let's say.
Yeah. But this one is not like if you were to look at the education they provided, it's really barely like a couple classes of high school biology where everything is really not, and then like the dangers of high blood pressure, but then there's nothing about real program design or real diet or real nutrition.
That's it, exactly. That's most of them.
Yeah. So exactly. So what I said was, you looked at what NASM did with Equinox. To get to my point, was I saw the success that you actually understood. If someone were to look at it and say, to develop a relationship with a large group chain of health clubs, that would then make it a requirement for everyone to come aboard to get Poliquin certified, or Strength Sensei certified. Then you have an instantaneous flood channel that's coming in all the time. Yep. And then now here's where the other problem is. When we did this, my biggest fight was grinding the teeth and battling gym owners at the idea that stop trying to rape your trainers by taking 60, 70%. I think this is why this is why I think the field's dying. There's no minor leagues for a trainer to get it certified and then make enough money that they can spend $3,500 on one of those old school certifications that we used to get. And then and the gym's not doing a marketing. They want to charge $9.99 a month and pack people in there that don't get results. So they don't want to spend the money on getting demographics disposable income, because that's real hard marketing to do. So you get this vicious cycle. We would go in and say, listen, to break this cycle, if we educate our staff, your personal trainers now become sales reps. Everywhere they go in their life, they're able to talk to somebody about how to better their life. That's a lead. So we learn this in the financial advisor world. Everywhere you go, someone's a possible lead. You're looking at their watch, you're looking at their shoes, you're looking at the car they drive. Oh, the guy drives a Ferrari. I want to get his 401k and invest it for him. So you just put that mentality with fitness. Hey, he's got a limp. There's something wrong with his leg. Oh, I notice he's carrying a jiu-jitsu bag. Maybe, I know there's all these ways I can enter and talk to them about their health and book a session. So I think that's unless a gym, a large franchise can say, we want to invest in making our trainers careers, not jobs. We want these guys, and we're willing to give them, the trainer, the ability to make 50 to 70%. We're just going to take 30%, which would be a flop on the industry. But what I did is I showed this. We did this in several states where we would get a 600% increase in personal training sales. But so it evened out the flipping of the percentages.
Yeah, but absolutely.
And they were like, I'm making you more money, even though you're taking less of the pie, but now your average person stays a year or two longer. So now
trainers want to come and work.
And the trainers want to come, which now makes it competitive versus you trying to do this. So anyway, and I said this, I just had somebody else on the podcast, and I said, how different would the world would be if something like a Charles. So my biggest fans, my two biggest fans, I feel I'm a fan of, is Charles and Poliquin. And I think very different routes. I love them both. But so I always said, like, what if our education track was that type of thinking? Let's get past the BS and the symptoms and like, let's really get deeper into things. So I think that's where you then could create careers where people have disposable income to travel. You could bring back the seminars, and then it'd be in everyone's face, and you'd make a really massive health change. If you're doing bias with that. So let me ask you one last question on Poliquin, because I also wanted to leave some time for you to talk about your books, the strength and training for jiu-jitsu, because you just mentioned the expansion. I could talk your ear off all day, and now that I figured out you're the mystery man, I'll send you the information. But anyway, it would be beautiful to see everything back together again. The bios, everything, and then being able to call it Charles's name again. I always remember Charles said, "There's like, don't name the damn company after yourself." I'm like,
we know why now.
I remember we said that afterwards. But so, last thing I will ask you, because this is the thing I've been hunting so you were around the beginning. What's the legend that I had heard when I met Charles, and I wasn't brave enough to ask him, is that Charles and Poliquin were friends at one point, fellow Canadians. Something happened over a client. Nobody knows. They said there was a client issue, and then Paul went super shaman, holistic, and Charles went super science and very ego driven.
I don't know the story, but that would be typical, because it wasn't like, I think the way Charles saw strength training wasn't the same as probably Paul. So I think it was just like there was a feud once, but then after that, I know I've heard the story, but they've met up again. Everything was okay, and then it was just like it really was like people were talking and didn't know the story, made up something, but then the story like ended up bigger than it was. I think it was just that, but I don't think there was like something very big. But
Charles was brutal to you in a seminar, so Charles. So the way we did our seminars when we did them was you'd stand up, John Billington, Nassim, Poliquin Principles 1, Freehold, New Jersey, Powerhouse Gym, right? And then you would go and everyone introduced themselves. So they would tell you, do not say that you're Czech certified. So being a Jersey guy, North Jersey, when I heard how horrible Charles was, I was excited. Like I brought fucking plastic calipers on purpose because I was like, I want to see this guy start. But when he won me over immediately, because he had that. I thought he was a Boston guy. He was so tough and grizzly,
Right.
but he was so smart and succinct that I just fell right into everything. But I went up there with this sat front row, a Czech holistic lifestyle consultant. He just like,
Right.
and I was like waiting for it. Nothing came. And I'm like, and I'm looking at everyone, what the fuck happened? You know, and that was the, but he was at other ones. He would always then take a shot at what was it like? Anyway, without getting into it, it was always like a known thing that there was this ribbing going on and you didn't want to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was weird because when you started getting, like, I felt Charles did an amazing job of showing you how the holistic stuff Paul was talking about had roots in science.
Yeah, but that was the biosig.
Exactly, right? Like when you were talking about a lot of the herbs and the yin yang and I'm like, so I always felt like they kind of looked at things the same way. They just almost spoke a different language.
That's it.
Right? Like, yeah.
It's because don't forget biosig or like metabolic analytics, whatever. Okay, it's all a system. Okay, so if you want to sell something, you got to have a system.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a way of bringing up from level 1, level 2, level 3. So that's what he always did. So that's why I think he worked so hard on it. Biosig at the beginning was everywhere. Like we had like all types of Chinese medicine and all that. But throughout the years, he cleaned it up, and then it became a bit better as well, like more centered on the health and symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, now other groups took it another way, and then Paul went really holistic. So like to each their own, but you'll find, I think, if you're good enough as a coach, you'll find which way is good for your client. You're not gonna try to change your client and make it your own way, which is the
Which
end.
is where I see a lot now. Everything is somebody's. This
Yeah.
is the so-and-so system. It's like, dude, that's just, you can't. It's science.
No. Like that.
You're getting the science wrong. I was like, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like there's the art of coaching and then there's coaching. So the art of coaching is to know how to deal with your client, but it might not be your way. Like the what you've learned before. You might have to open up your books again and figure it out. So it's like that's the goal. And that's why, again, like you said, like trying to send people your trainers here and there and find out different methods. Like I've learned from Paul Chek. I've learned from all kinds of coaches. I might not have been in like I might not find that way, the way I've learned from it, or the way that is correct for what I know. But you know what? I'm pretty sure in everything I've learned, there's ways I didn't want to use, but I had to because of a certain condition, a certain way the client couldn't make it, and then it really worked. So you even if it's not something you're right with or you don't want to use, you might have to use it one day, and then it's going to give you results. So don't throw something in the garbage because you think it's not good. Just keep it in mind, and that's the art of coaching, I think.
Yeah, tell me how this resonates with you. But I had another coach on. He was a Czech guy, a functional medicine guy. Played Division I American or football, I believe it was. Big dude. I worked with him. Great coach. He knew a little bit about Charles, but he was a big Czech guy. And so he said this term, and I liked it. And I feel both Charles's system was like this, and so was Paul's. It's a system of systems. Like when you learn biosignature, I think some people got too much on arguing about the test and the software and is the fat really there, and is this really, where's the science to back it up? And I was like, what I took from biosignature was food affects hormones. It's not just about calories.
Yeah.
And what I learned was, let's start journaling things and monitoring our client.
That's it. Exactly.
And it's like, wait a minute, I don't need to know the exact science. I kind of need to know the patterns.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the word that I wanted to hear.
Yeah, Yeah, I just see the pattern, and then I'm going to back that up and say, okay, well, this pattern presented itself, and this was during this time of the year, or this was this. Then you start seeing there's more of these cycles, and there's a pattern of patterns. What I loved about both Charles and Paul, as different as they were in their, let's say, execution or delivery, they both did exactly what you said before. They were like, I always found more courses and coaches that weren't it wasn't like, oh, take check level 7, take check, and Charles was like, take Poliquin principle 79. It was like, I learned about Guy Voyer through these guys, because it was like, oh, you want to learn how to, you have a tendon issue. Well, what's the answer, Charles? I don't know. You got to see somebody who's great at that, right? It's like, oh, so as arrogant as he might have been, I felt he needed to be like that to be dominant in that field, because it was very unchecked egos and strength and conditioning. I mean, that's just sports in general, but then I think you also needed to control a lot of people with egos at the top level of getting why am I going to follow you as a strength coach? You've never done it, right? And then you also have to drive it home. But I think also he knew where his boundary was. Like, I'm the smartest at this, and he didn't. And I don't think anybody.
Something like the first thing he did, that guy is good in that. Call right away.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like that, but people don't understand. They couldn't get deep enough with him to realize, no, he'll hit a ceiling, and then he'll tell you to go to someone else. You just didn't go there because, and that's why, again, I found so many other courses. And I agree with you. I was always like, Charles was the same way as Paul's, like, take what you need from people as you go, right? Hormones.
And that's how they developed their system. Like, Paul went holistic, most probably because he met like a few people that were going towards what he wanted to have as a system. Charles went functional medicine at some point, and like he stuck to that. But he knew also, like, strength training, who he needed to go to build his own system. But the Poliquin principles, like, this is everywhere. This came from the basics, but also everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people when they start looking. And I also love how there was always this I can't find the right word, but there were always, like, when you learn German volume training and German block training, and both, you would learn these old school techniques, and it was never like, this is the Charles Poliquin. It's like, no, he called it what it was. It gave it the historical significance. Again, that's another issue, I think, is because a lot of that stuff that's science isn't copyrightable and patentable, so to speak. So it's hard to protect it when you write a course like that. Somebody can just read it and rewrite it. But that's
what the stuff, like, even Charles, like, there's a few things that came from other coaches before, but he took it and might have modified it, or he wasn't shy of saying that that's not him.
Yes, he was. That's what I said. He was, as much as you might have yelled he was arrogant, he was the first one to be like, never would take credit for what wasn't his.
That's why we can't really patent or put some copyright on it. Besides, if you want to have a book and put something in it, it's different. But whatever. There's a few issues because of the other groups and all that happened before. So that's why it's hard a bit. But again, like, it's always taken from something in the past. Let's say he went in the Eastern Bloc, which for most of his training, like powerlifting, he went also with Pierre Roy, which is a coach I work with over here in Olympic lifting. So he's like one of the best. That was one of his mentor in Olympic lifting. So, like, he took a few exercises, like, he wanted to have the information, how he does the programming, the phases and all that, like the periodization. He went to Pierre Roy for Olympic lifting for his a few of his clients as well, like the athletes. He was into Olympic lifting as well. So
his base seemed to come from Olympic lifting, then the bodybuilding, and then it seemed like there was started giving more coaches, maybe like yourself, that started being like, well, how, man, if you can get this powerful, what if we put it on the mat? Right? Mm-hmm. And that was me. When I started learning him, I was applying it to football players. I was like, oh, man, this stuff is great.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's very useful for that.
Well, great. The structure, all the whole structural stuff. And so let's close out. Like I said, I could talk about Charles the whole time. I have to ask you, though, give us, like, what's your most outrageous? I have to ask, what's the most outrageous, funniest, most memorable story you have about Charles that you can remember, maybe at a conference or something? I know there's probably a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot, but fun because he's like he was a clown sometimes, like doing fun.
He had a great humor. He had a very dry, like
joke. Like I couldn't even share my messenger. But when we owned the gym in Montreal, like he had issues with his shoulders. Okay, both his shoulders were very messed up, so he had a hard time like eating, or he was eating at the office and then bending over. But he was always like with crumbs everywhere. Okay, so my office was his office when he came, and eating and doing programs and eating at the same time. But can you imagine just the mess that it was? And then one of his appointments came in the gym, so I went to get him, but he stood up, and then it was all full of crumbs on his t-shirt. I was like, "Come here, bud." Like, like scoop him up, and then okay, good. Then he said, "Thank you," and then he went to see his appointment. So like all kinds of stuff like that, like the stories that he had with clients, or when he was traveling as well. So it was yeah, I miss him a lot.
Yeah, he was for those that don't know, like you missed, it was an entertaining, because the other thing too is we were learning things. I had a college degree, I had a good GPA, I had 2 degrees, like, and I'm sitting there like, where the hell is he going with this? Like, and it's because it's like he's going over, like chemical branch chains. And I'm like, and I'm looking around the room at people I know that are just completely lost, yet they're still enamored and sitting there for 12 hours watching them. There's just you're right. Like, think about that. You're explaining a super hard concept, which you are doing a good job of, but some people are still lost, yet they're not falling asleep. They're like,
oh yeah, no, he had a way of telling stories, and like going around, like especially as well as the level of the coaches that was in the room. Like sometimes they were high level, but sometimes we had conference that they had like a few trainers that are starting and all that, and he was really good with them as well. So he dumbed it down just enough to make sure that you understand, and then he bring you to the point that you were, that he wanted you to be. So he was a good, very good speaker at a conference.
But I feel when I went to a lot of other conferences and stuff and talks, I did feel though he did not slow the pace down. Like if you didn't do the pre-reading, which was an annoying thing for me, because the one thing on the holistic side of education, it's a much more, like, well, okay, we'll slow it down for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I was like, come on, man, I was like into this. I read all my stuff. I read the 4 books.
Especially if you had like you were warned in advance, then he would rip you if you didn't.
And I was fine with that, because I was like, I felt like old school where it's like, you're slowing me down.
Yeah.
He was what was the other thing too, was he was always I had so many stories of us where people would approach him during his lunch break, which was, you roll your eyes. It was like, and then it became so for me, so the way my company worked is we were hired by our gyms to go in and increase their personal training department in sales. And my pitch to the gym owner was, the way we can beat LA Fitness or these low cost price models is we're going to go the opposite. We're going to give them a higher percentage of revenue. We're going to educate the shit out of them and make them sound like doctors and physical therapists. So, and we're going to increase your price by 40%. And we're going to get it, because we're going to make them speak and talk better. We're talking about hormones, when we're talking about structural analysis to avoid injury, all this beautiful stuff that comes from it. So I would bring these, as I told you, the new hires to level 1. So I never really did level 2s or higher classes. I would repeat the level 1s.
Okay.
So I was constant. So then it would become a running joke, like, hey, go ask Charles a question when we go to lunch. Send somebody. And the absolute pure violence and comic relief that it was, that because he would just say something in 5 words and cut you down, right?
Yeah.
If you were 6'5" in Jack, or if you were 5'1" in a female, it was like, do not break his leg.
No, that's it exactly.
So you got
everybody watch dogs sometimes. Like if I saw someone like approaching Charles, I was like,
you were like,
go. It's fine. After. Yeah.
So we're almost we're just hitting 1 hour. How I don't know how much longer I have you.
Maybe 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you the floor to talk a little bit because what I'll also do is offline. I'll tell you. This cuts up some clips. So tell me a little bit about uh, how you're applying the strength and conditioning. You got a lot of stuff on your Instagram: energy systems, nutrition, injury prevention. Talk to. I just want to give you the floor to talk a little bit about what you're using from Poliquin or in Strength Sensei, and what you're using now with Jiu-Jitsu. What do you find the best? What are some of the things, if you had 10 minutes to tell people you want the most about what you do as a coach of strength training and grappling?
Okay. Like every time I get someone in, it's I do an assessment, and this is where the structural balance, okay, with Charles, like again that I've learned like so many years ago, always start with that, and also add muscle testing to see if there's some type of strength discrepancy, which we see a lot in combat sports. So I start with those, and then I build a program upon what I saw with the assessments. Okay, so there's no one I train before I do that, except if I do them online. Then I just want to see some type of movements. Let's say split squats, pull ups. Let's say 1 rep just for fun, and I'm not going to tell them much about how to do it. Okay,
Yes.
I'm not gonna coach them into doing it. No, I'm just gonna tell them do a barbell back squat. I'm gonna send them a video. I want them to match the best they can the video in question, and then I want to see it back. So then that's when I see like some type of screening if I can see them online in person, and then I build a program upon that. So if I take, let's say, uh, you know that we can train a white belt the same as a black belt, but it could come up to the same. Okay? Because let's say if you start with a white belt, we know that is mostly the learning curve. Okay, so you have to start. Let's say most complain about their cardio; they can last, they can't do a few rounds before they gas out. This is movement efficiency. So they have to learn it from there. If you make them do cardio, let's say as like crazy, it won't work that much. They can't rest. There's always going to be also an issue with joint issues. It could be some also uh, just being tired and all that. So they want to invest maybe more into jiu-jitsu than into strength training. Like strength training would be more structural balance again, making sure shoulders are healthy. They start, unless they've been doing strength training for a while, then the energy might be similar. Like you can invest, let's say, 2-3 times a week on the mats, and then 2-3 times a week strength training, which doesn't mess it up too much with the energy expenditure. But a black belt, sometimes I have a few, and they don't spend, if any, energy rolling because they can't really get pushed to that point. So those are the ones that might need to do, let's say they want to do worlds, they want to do upper level, or they really want to push themselves. They won't be able to push as much on the mats because they don't have many people at their level. So that's when strength training or doing conditioning outside the mats, that would be when you want to use it the most. But again, depends on where they are at as well. So that's the way I function with them. But periodization, like you said at the beginning, for let's say football and jiu-jitsu, completely different. Like the off season for football is way longer. You get much more time with them to prepare them. Let's say they have issues, problems, joints, whatever. Football, it's the best, okay, because you get a lot of time, and then they are serious athletes as well. I can't really say the same with jiu-jitsu. Okay, we have like freaks that they can't stop rolling, even if they're white, blue belt, whatever. The they can't figure out a good balance between training, rolling, and nutrition. Okay, nutrition, most think that they can go with whatever they want. It's really a matter of balance for them. So if you need to tell them, listen, you might need to roll a bit less, and you want to focus on go with structural, like making sure the structure is okay, and then you don't get injured that often. They will might start to cry, or there's going to be problem telling them to do less time on the mats, but this is only for a short period. So trying to balance it out for those guys, and like you said, there's no really off season with jiu-jitsu. You can compete like almost every month or every 2 3 months. There's no way of like saying, okay, there's the off season. No, like I have fighters also that does K1, kickboxing and all that. The same thing. Like mine a month ago said, okay, I have a fight in a month. Oh, okay, let's rebuild the program, or like play around with it to make sure that he's okay for that. But he has a fight now this weekend. Then he has another fight in December, and then another one in January. So I have to plan, let's say, which one is the most important for him. And then those ones, like the one in this weekend, is like a pacer, and see what we have to correct and make sure that he's okay. And then after that, it's boxing in January. So I'm like everywhere, but in 2 months. So I have to like split it up the best I can, making sure that he's okay. Also, for he had a few concussion as well, like knee issues. So in those times, I'm gonna keep him the best I can with some structure, like rehab, prehab, injury prevention more than anything else, because he's gonna spar a lot. So jiu-jitsu is the same. There's a lot of sparring, but I think what we do over here, it's like mostly situational sparring. Okay, and also we try to also not, after blue belt, I think it's easier to do, is to control your roles, and the experience you have, like okay, you go at 70%, it's easy to do in the gym. But if you tell them, okay, you try to go at 70% of your energy expenditure with roles, it's harder to do with let's say white and blue belt, because it's not really
We're trying
something.
to say about white belts. We don't know what we're doing.
No, but that's it. But again,
This is my imitation of like the white as me as a white belt.
yeah, that's it.
Just
Yeah.
hold your breath
And
150% and try not to die.
and survive. That's it. So, but again, it's the same thing for them. I tell them, like, we over here, it's mostly a private, semi-private gym. So we have like small classes. I want to keep it like that. And it's to show them as well, like, again, situational training, and to make them learn as fast as possible, like to conserve energy, and making them aware of like the spidey sense. Let's say, okay, now you're in trouble, now you're not. So it's the way to conserve energy when you're starting up, and we all went through it. You're going through it, like, still now. Like yesterday I got a beating with it, one guy, because this weekend I messed him up. I messed him up like very bad on Saturday, so he took his revenge. But I could, like, in gi is completely different. So yesterday in gi, we did gi all together like 9 years ago. So we always trained together. But yesterday night was bad, man. I took a beating and a half. It was really bad. But again, it's like there's going to be good days, bad days, and this is part of what we're doing. If you're always beating up everyone, it's not good. If you're not in trouble, you don't know how much you can dig into like that last reserve. And those training, you can't train that like that every time. So that's when people are getting injured. That's when you can recuperate. That's when after that you lose the interest of just going, because you know you're gonna get a beating. So that's why, like, focusing on different levels of training, like situational, could be upping up the pace, doing like shark tanks and stuff like that. It's okay, but you can't train all out every workout. So I think that's, if I had to say something, and you had one thing to learn today for the ones watching, is don't try to win every roles. Okay, don't train all out every workout. You could do maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, it's fine, but you're not learning if you're not failing. Okay, so you got to be in bad situation. You got to be in like shitty, like pacing, like trying to die every workout. That's gonna happen. But again, you have to explore everything in training as much as in the gym. So if I get someone that did strength training and powerlifting all the time, then I'm for sure there's a lack somewhere that I need to focus on, and then let's say core, hip, flexors, stuff like that. I need to work on those. And yes, they will die in the gym because it's something new. So the learning curve is always the same. You're a white belt and black belt in every sport, strength training. There's always an issue you have to fix. There's always a weakness you need to work on. So that's why, like ego training, I try to warn everyone that comes into the gym, even in the dojo, the same thing. So you come, you learn. Don't expect to be the best every day. Don't expect to be at your worst every day. So you get all these roller coaster moments throughout the week if it's not in the year. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say this to your point. It's and to the point, like you said before about Charles, and he would do the hypertrophy camps, and he would like kill them in the training and these death training. What I tell younger coaches, like, you don't understand that you weren't doing the certification courses where he trained you at that level because he also taught you how important the recovery was.
Yeah.
Like, you don't out train your recovery. If you want to go 150%, I tell my athletes, you want to go 150% in the gym, I need 165 in your recovery. Did you sleep? Did you hit all your meals? And I found, since I had no background, at the time when I was training my fighters, I'm not sure if you heard of CFFC, Cage Fury Fighting Championship.
Yeah.
They're out of the Northeast. So I had a bunch of fighters in that when I had my gym in Jersey.
Okay.
That's how I think I saw you, like the guy from Jersey who's a big jiu-jitsu guy in Jersey.
No, most probably. Okay.
Tom DeBlas.
Yeah, Bowie. Oh, yeah, Bowie. Okay.
Yeah. So DeBlas, it's so Jersey's a small world. It was like Tom DeBlas. There was this other guy. They were from Henzo. Then I had one or two fighters from Henzo's team from the New York City one.
Yeah.
And so I started to meet all those people. My difficulty was I had some respect for the fact that I had a strength coach in football. I had NFL players. I had a couple guys that went to the Super Bowl. I had some great accolades there. Never trained a fighter. Never was a fighter. I had like a red belt in karate when I was in 8th grade, right? Like, no real background, no jiu-jitsu. So when I'm I had that all the time. Like, guys, you can't, like, I would call the coach and I'd be like, bro, every time you send me their fighters, they're limping in. They haven't eaten in 6 hours. I can't train them. The shoulder shot. And they'd be like, well, do you think he's going to make weight? I'm like, I don't think he's going to live. I'm like, yeah. So I was always having that battle of, hey, please trust me on the science of this. You can't go 150% every roll and then come in here and go 150% in the gym and then not sleep at night, fight with your girlfriend, then go work an 8-hour shift and come and train again. Like, and I always felt that the last thing I'll say is, like, the MMA fighters, especially trying to just break into that pro level, man, dude, they're working full-time jobs. They're making like $3,000 a fight, if that. It's tough. It's like, but let me say this in closing. Do you, since you are, like, give me a little bit of background. So you've been training jiu-jitsu a long time. Is there what school do you train at? So I'm just learning it. I train at a Gracie Baja.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. I love it. I'm blown away. My son goes to it. My coach was on the Olympic team for Brazil.
Okay.
So just, I mean, he's just awesome, dude. It's like rolling with him is like grabbing a tree. It's you know this, right? So like, I don't know, but he's Adrian. He does the Lake Nona, Gracie Baja. I got to meet guys from Henzo's and train at Henzo's. So I know there's those schools. Then I don't know much else. And I don't know. So how did you, real quick to close, how'd you get started? Where'd you get your white belt? Who gave you your black belt? What's your trade?
I'm brown. Okay, no,
Oh, you're brown. Okay, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I'm just brown. But I started with the Gracie Barra.
Oh, you
Uh,
did?
yeah, I started with them up until blue belt. But I had coaches come because where I started the jujitsu is because I just wanted to train jujitsu. I didn't really care who, what, when, whatever. So in my gym in the back, I had like a few spot that I could put mats. So I hired a guy. Okay, that was from Gracie Baja to just come and give us private lessons at the gym because I didn't have time to go over there, come back. So I said, you know what? And that came from Charles as well. So he said, you know what? If you you can do something, bring it over here. So I said, okay, let's try to do that. So I built the space in the back. But then a lot of people saw us train in the gym in the back, and then we came out like to be a big gang. Like in the, I think we had like 10 mats. Okay, so it was like a small space, and but we were like a lot of people started to train. So I took the part of the local next to my gym. We built a small gym there. Then it grew a bit again, and I said, okay, you know what? I took the whole local next to my gym, so I'm about like 5,000 square foot now. So half is dojo, half is my gym. Okay, so now it's next door and it's open between the gyms. So I just go next door, do rows, and then we come back. But we always stuck with Gracie Barra. The teacher that comes and trains us over here, he trains as well at Gracie Barra. He's a black belt there,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
yeah, and then we never stop. We have like 3 classes a day. It's going really well, and yeah, so I always went with Gracie Barra there. I went up to blue belt with Gracie Barra, but then after that, the coaches over here are we have a few black belts, so we got certified. So there's also team BTT, Brazilian top jiu-jitsu team, and we train with them as well. So we get a few because you know that it's a bit taboo, but you can't really if you're part of another gym like Gracie Bar doesn't like that. But again, that's what I didn't want to have over here in my gym. So we welcome everyone to come as long as they are respectful. So we get a few people from all kinds of gyms. They come to train with us, open mats. Like we like to have, again, like in strength training, we were talking about that, like
All
different
the different minds.
school of thought and how they learn. We like to use that. So we welcome everyone. But yes, we started with Gracie Baja for
Yeah, that's awesome.
when we did, and yeah, now I got my brown belt not long ago,
Okay.
and but like I couldn't care less about the belt. Seriously, it's like so most people I want to have a belt. I want like you know what? After blue belt, I was like, you know what? It's not really about the belt. It's the it's like uh,
Therapy.
yeah, it's the journey. Okay, so
The
it's a
journey.
bit
Yeah.
weird to say that, but you know what? It's true because you don't. I know some really good blue belts and purple belt, but I know some shitty black belts as well. So
Yeah, as jujitsu has gotten more popular, I've heard that more. Somebody had asked me because at like 46, getting in now 47, I'll actually be. So I had a weird experience. I started training because I wanted to do like a charity MMA fight
mhm.
in my 40s and yada yada yada. There's a big thing behind it that would make more sense, but we don't have the time. So I walked into a Gracie Baja in Kissimmee, Florida, and so this is my question to you: is I didn't want to train gi. I was like, I don't need that. I'm going to be fighting, no gi. This is real fighting. I'm going to be real fighting. So there's a Professor Igor down there who's very well known in Gracie Baja down here, and uh, he just like literally ignored me right to my face. It was like, here's your gi, go get changed. I was like, what? So
Yeah.
I trained for 6 weeks and then I dislocated my kneecap.
Okay.
And then it was like a year and a half of just kneecap went, shoulder, changed job. Had relocated to Florida from Jersey after I shut my gym. Never really got comfortable down here. Then finally, my son had wind up joining another Gracie Baja that was actually closer to me.
Mm.
Met the head professor there. The guy's amazing. He's a dad. He's got his 2 sons and his wife and I believe his daughter. And just an amazing guy and coach. So I started picking up training again and did my first tournament.
Okay.
And so here's my question. Now I'm flipped. I think no. Oh, so let me ask you, what do you prefer, gi or no gi?
It's hard to say. Like
okay.
With gi, yeah, no,
everyone decides one or the other real fast. That's why.
No. I like both. Like I think you should do both. Like I don't think there's one.
Yeah, but isn't one like no gi's not really jujitsu? Like
no, it is. If you do it well.
No, gi is the shit. Like gi is.
You know what? I think it's because it's really hard and you can't really get away with mistakes in gi.
Yeah. Okay. Which is why I like it. People ask me, what do you love about it? I said the same thing. I don't care about the belt at 47, 8. I don't care if I ever get out of white belt. I love the idea that I can go somewhere with other people and men, and we pretty much choke each other like in like controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And when I'm there, yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm good to go. Nothing else bothers me for the next 3 days. Like you can't piss me off. You can't get under my skin. I can deal with any problem. And then the camaraderie, and I explained this to my ex-wife and why I wanted my son to do it, is like all about being a white belt. I feel is just learning how to lose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're learning how to lose, and at the end of it, you want to be able to get out of bad positions.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've learned from my fighters and working with people is like and I said, you know, for a young man in our world to be able to just consistently go through this process of losing and then somebody else turning around and be like, that's okay. Let me show you how not to do that.
That's it.
You don't get that in academia. You don't get that in a lot of areas. And for jiu-jitsu to be so visceral and so physical, but then be really, I thought American football was the most complicated sport. And it is. Adjustment routes, hot routes, audibles, very difficult. I played quarterback 100%. Okay. However, the mind game of jiu-jitsu that you think I'm going here because I want you to go here, but if you go there, then I'm going here. Like if you're a white belt and you've ever thought you've had a black belt in trouble, you know what I'm saying when you're like, what the hell just happened? And you're conscious, right? That's the beautiful chess.
Yeah. That exactly chess. But that's the goal is like, that's why I love it so much. It's problem solving on crack. Okay. So
that's tough to put on a marketing banner.
It's so fast, and that's why, like exactly like you said, you have 2 ways to go, but there's 3 types of problem that you can run into. But you have to think about those 3 ones, and then there's one solution for each 3 of those ones. Okay, so it's always always a problem, but a solution. But like so fast, and that's why I like it, and that's why I think it's something that gets me out of what I'm doing daily. Like training wise, like I could build a program with my eyes closed and like have fun with it, but it's good to step away of what you're doing like for a few hours, and then after that I go back into training. Then I'm fresh and I want to go, I'm fired up. But I needed that type of like the problem solving. Like I always done that. Like with a client, let's say he has issues with health. That's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing. We're problem solvers. So that's why I think jiu-jitsu, I really like it that much. And now it's been 9 years. I don't see myself like stopping. Even like there's some people, they are so focused on getting that black belt. And I tell them, what, you think you're going to stop after that?
Yeah,
It's not going to stop. And even if you think you've reached your top at your black belt, then go back to what you were doing. There's some weaknesses that you don't want to explore. So focusing on that, I always like to beat myself up with training. So I do the same with jits. Like I always start in shitty position. I want to be stuck. Like I really, really want to be in trouble and see how far I can go or how deep I can dig if I'm in trouble. So that's why I'm that type of person. And even in training, I'm gonna go till my end. Okay. But again, I want to do the same thing in jits. Like I want to have the hard rounds. But now I'm 49 and I gotta make sure that it's balanced on the other side as well. So nutrition, everything has to be up to par.
Yeah, I think that's huge note. Like 9 years, you're 40. Oh, so you got into it about 40.
Yeah.
So 49. Okay, yeah. So I'm kind of a late getting started in my mid 40s. Let me do this while I got you. We're gonna when we hang up, just hang on a minute because I gotta let the cloud read.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
But the two books you have are Strength Code and Roll Stronger.
Yeah.
Both available on Amazon. I'm gonna share the link on the post. Yeah. I'm gonna have this cut up into a bunch of 30, 90-second clips, and I'll make sure I'll put them in there for you. I'm gonna have to rebook. I didn't get Strength Code. I think I got Roll Stronger was the one I had.
Okay, tell me which one. I'll send you the other one, but I can't send it now because we're the postal services are on strike, so I'm not gonna send it.
Really?
Now. Yeah, no, it's stupid over here. Anyways, so as soon as it gets up, I'll send you the strength code.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate it. I'll put the link in there for everybody. What's the name of your gym? I don't think I have anybody listening in your area in Canada, but what's the name of your gym? Where are you located? And do you have a website they can find you at?
Yeah, it's in Montreal. It's called Body Fit, BODHI, as in Bodhisattva, like dedicating myself to help everyone. So that's what I've been doing. And then the Combat Dojo is my jiu-jitsu school. And if ever some people want to come in Montreal, come and visit us, the gym, you're welcome to come. Just mention the podcast with John, and then it would be a pleasure to have you here.
I appreciate it, man. And I'm going to leave you with one thing, because I've noticed this when we talked about patterns, and I think this will be interesting, or you'll like this, is I get this Charles-esque vibe from you when you started explaining some of the hypertrophy or the tempo. You did this like one finger thing.
Oh,
like, he used to do it. I can't mimic it, and I try to do it in the camera. But when you started talking, you'll lean and you'll do this, and I just remember sitting across from him.
Thank you.
I go, you Canadians remind me of like the Staten Island Italians I grew up around, doing this.
Oh,
and then you did this, you explained it this way, and then now for my Gen Alphas, if anybody watched that, I'm just going to tell everybody you're George St. Pierre. That's what you're
almost the same accent. It's fine.
Almost the same. But yeah, when you said curve, and you said a couple other things that it kind of like rung on my head. I was like, oh, that's like Charles.
Yeah. That's it.
There's not many French Canadians or even Canadians down here in Florida, so.
I'll come by.
Let me know too. Let me know if you ever come down in this area, please.
Okay, cool.
There are a couple places to train and roll out. Let me get you out of here. Thank you so much. I have you over time, Eric.
Thank you.
I will shoot you an email or whatever, but let me get you off screen so I can do this. Everybody, I'm just going to do a hard stop and hit the end of recording so I can get this going. And we're out, guys. Thank you very much. And